The COYGIG Pod and OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
Everyone ran their socks off tonight and they left everything out there. They're very proud of the team's performance.
Let the shackles off Katie a bit so that she can go and play her game.
We're going to go out there to beat them. We're going to try and beat them.
Hello there, you are welcome along to episode 19 of the COYGIG Pod, OTB's home of everything WSL, Irish football and everything else in between. I'm Karen Duggan and with me is the one and only Pearl Slattery. Emma Carroll will join us a little bit later on with her team of the week, and we'll also be talking to Pearl's teammate and newly capped Ireland international Chloe Mustacky. I'd say she's fairly buzzing after the weekend, like yourself. Start off with, you really romped home against Cork. I mean 7-0. Did you just turn on the style or what was it?
Actually, you know what, we've actually played better, Karen, believe it or not, against the likes of Cork in previous seasons, and probably have struggled to put them away. Now look, don't get me wrong, you know, you don't like scoring, you know yourself, 6-7 on teams, you get no joy out of it. But in terms of selfishly, if we're looking at our squad, it was a great opportunity to get a bit of joy, confidence in front of goal, because as I said, we've probably played better in those games in previous seasons, only managed to score one or two and, you know, hit every frame of the goal and keepers pulling off early. So look, it was really nice. We're obviously 4-0 up at half time, and Noel made a few changes, and it was, you know, great for the likes of Gemma Quinn, who's back in the league, Gloria Douglas, Kate O'Dowd, and a few of the girls who come on in the second half scoring a goal. You know yourself, keeping the squad happy. Yeah. So it was nice. We were able to make the 5 changes, and all the subs that came on did really well. So look, as I said, you probably get no joy out of that scoreline, but for us it was more so confidence in front of goal, keeping a clean sheet and 3 points. So we were happy.
Yeah, not as comfortable an afternoon for us in Peamount. Very good first half, horrific second half. DLR came back. Honestly, if the game had gone on for another 10 minutes, I think we would have lost. Like, it was just one of those mad halves where we just couldn't get the ball down at all. But the standout, I think, on the WNL this week, the result was Athlone beating Galway. We spoke about Athlone last week and how they are really difficult to play against. Galway, obviously, now without Savannah. They're missing Julianne, I think, possibly missing Lindsay McKee as well. Yeah. So it was going to be a tough task, but Athlone have proved now that they can go and beat we'll call them the big teams, whatever.
Yeah, like we spoke about how because obviously it was in Athlone and we've made that point, how difficult it is to go there now. And as I said, they've added a few bodies. I obviously had experience of it 2 weeks ago, but look, I think like everybody, when I come out of my game, you know, you check the League of Ireland and you see the score and you're still thinking, oh my God, you know, everyone was a bit surprised. But again, it just backs up what we've said. But I just, you know, obviously you mentioned you were missing Julie and Lindsay. I just hope when Galway kept Sav this season, it was such a lift for them. You just hope now it's not the opposite, that they don't just let it defeat them now, because she's such a big personality. She's the captain, you know, the way she plays and stuff. You just hope now that it doesn't affect the rest of the season. And you're hoping with the likes of Julie, Lindsay, the more serious senior players at Galway now, that they can kind of, I suppose, get rid of that weekend now and I suppose not let it affect them down the line, because Galway still have a good squad there. But definitely a surprise result. But again, fair play to Athlone.
Yeah, no other surprises then. Wexford beating Treaty 3-0 and of course Bowes beating Sligo 3-1. Not that comfortable in affair, I would say, but yeah, Wexford obviously that was very, very expected. Across the water then there was another big win. You thought you were doing well with your 7-0. Chelsea, their joint ever record for goals scored, a 9-0 win against Leicester. That's crazy. That's crazy. I know it's top and bottom of the league, but they had 7 goals in 47 minutes. I think they had 3 in by the 7th minute.
I was just about to say, I think when I was having a look at it, I just couldn't believe it. First 10 minutes, it was like 3-0. But again, you don't like to see that. But I suppose a nice little highlight there as well. Lauren James came on, and you know she's
first goal for Chelsea. Yeah,
obviously a big player for United. I think she's a top player. Great to see her back. But yeah, just. And demolishment really of Leicester, but it shows again the quality of Chelsea squad. And then obviously Arsenal not playing, do you know, obviously now they're even, I think, on games already now. So
Chelsea are 1 point up now. So they had been behind obviously the whole way because they had played a less game, but now 5 games left. It's so interesting.
Both played now even games. You know, Chelsea obviously showing how good their squad is there. So look, the next 5 games are going to be so interesting. I can't wait. But again, a mad scoreline, but look, Chelsea are there to do one job and they have to win. Again, it just shows, I suppose, the strength in their squad as well throughout.
Yeah, and there was a bit of history made. Man United playing in Old Trafford, so fantastic to see. Would love to see way more of it. I think they had 20,000 people at the game, and they got a really good game. To be fair, Everton surprised them by going 1-0 up, but Man United have a lot of quality up top, and Russo, I just love watching her play. She's so powerful. So 3-1 win, and it was just the atmosphere, everything about it was brilliant.
The crowd and stuff, it was brilliant to see the crowd. Obviously, you can imagine what the feeling was like for those United players playing at Old Trafford.
Yeah,
it must have been unbelievable. And like I saw, it was, it was fairly even early out, and Emsley, who actually scores the everything goal, she was probably their best player. I think she was a threat on the counter attack all through the game, especially in the first half. And as you mentioned there, Russo, who probably under Stoney only got glimpses here and there, and she's really shown now when she's been. I know she's playing centrally before, but she's playing more so on the right hand side. But 2 brilliant headers. But I'd like to just give a shout out to Salem. Is it? Some of her deliveries, corner kicks. Oh my God! But the 2 headers Russo scored were lovely, and then obviously the captain.
Yeah, I wonder will Emma give Zellum a dig out this week in the team of the week? I know she doesn't want to put too many Man United players in there, but I think it'd be hard to ignore.
Some of her deliveries, Karen, were unbelievable. And then look, Russo's, even the first header was a lovely little loop, but the second header she got then was more, I suppose, direct top corner, like a bullet. So look, a great day for United.
Yeah, and Skinner, he talked after the match about the impact that a team like Man United can have in growing the league. They're the most followed team in the world. It was mad that for so long they didn't have a women's team, or they weren't promoting it in the way. And I think he's right. I think that having a team like Man United playing in Old Trafford, that helps the entire league.
Oh, absolutely. For years, as you said, they weren't. But I think the fact that they're in the league now and they have a women's section, but they're competing now, which is brilliant. And that's, if you are gonna, like, that'll only help if they are competing, they are in the top half of the table. Games like that in Old Trafford, seeing a crowd like that, it's absolutely massive. I mean, the WSL is just going strength from strength, and it's brilliant to see games
and that fight for that third spot. I know City played midweek and they obviously beat Everton as well, but it's the top 4. It's such an interesting battle. It's so good. It's really poised for the end of the season. The other games that were played then, Brighton overcame West Ham. Could have been a tricky one. Again, great to see Megan Connolly playing full 90 minutes. She's our mainstay in that team. West Ham did have chances on the break, but Brighton just had that little bit of quality. Actually, West Ham
it was an even game. They both had chances, I felt. They could have went either way. And look, obviously the first goal is lovely from Brighton, and then West Ham made it. Look, there's an error at the back of the second goal. But like a few times throughout the game, they're trying to play out, and times I'm thinking, just go long here and
play to your strengths.
The second goal comes from a mess at the back, but like West Ham had a fair few chances. So but look, I think when you take your chances, you're deserved winners. So good win for Brighton, I have to say, because West Ham have been doing okay recently.
Yeah, they're a tricky side to play against. Kind of a mid-table kind of clash. Wouldn't get overly excited about Aston Villa and Reading, but it was an even affair and there was good chances. Again, Grace Maloney was busy enough. So Villa definitely started the better, which maybe we wouldn't have expected. And they did probably have the better chances, but it was a 1-1 draw there.
1-1, fairly even, I felt. Obviously, the both goals came to the second half, so that just shows you. But I remember seeing Grace pulled off an unbelievable save at 1-1. I think it was from Allen. Could have won them the game. And, I'm hoping again, she's in Emma's team of the week for that save alone. It's honestly an unbelievable save. You haven't seen it. Allen's clean through on goal. She just gets her hand down to it and, gets them a point now and again in a game. So she's just becoming a big player, more so every season. We know how big she is for them, but she just keeps proving it season on season,
Yeah, and we talk about it a lot, that fight for the Irish goalkeeping spot. I wish we didn't talk about it a lot, because your keeper should be nailed on, but it comes up every time.
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting one. Obviously, look, I'm not around the squad, Karen, so I'm not sure why, but it's very hard when you're watching the WSL and you're seeing the unbelievable performances Grace is pulling out. You do have to wonder. And look, Brosnan, obviously, when she did come into the Ireland squad, she obviously had a few rough periods, if you like, but she has come into form. But it's a hard one. And obviously you have Walsh now coming into the frame, so there's 3 keepers there. But I think, like everyone you see on social media and stuff, Vera and obviously the goalkeeping coach sees a lot more than we do, so you have to trust in them. But it is questionable, I think, when you watch the WSL and the performances, Grace is pulling off week to week. I mean, she's won it, or the star player for Redden every single week. So again, I'm not sure.
It's just because it's such an important position on the pitch, not just the saves or whatever, but organising your backline. Ireland are going to have a really tough test against Sweden. You're going to want someone and obviously Savannah won't be playing now. You'd imagine Diane Caldwell will come in straight away and that won't upset things. But that bit of uncertainty can creep in and you just don't want it.
Absolutely. It's, as you said, there's such an important period now coming up to us. But again, I just always have to, because I've been involved in squads, they obviously see something. I don't know what it is. And look, as you said, Sav's obviously missing now. That was another interesting thing. I think, she was playing the Women's National League and keeping a Diane out, which was fascinating. So again, this is probably Diane's chance now to get back in the 11 and keep her spot. But interesting to see. I don't know, every time, there's an international break, always interested to see, because there's 3 keepers and top keepers there now, be interested to see who gets the number 1 spot for the upcoming games.
It gives us something to talk about anyway, so we're happy about that on the COYGIG Pod. The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner for the Republic of Ireland women's national team. If you have any opinions, suggestions or thoughts on what we've just been discussing, get them to us on Twitter on @offtheball using the hashtag OTBCOYGIG. We would love to hear them. We've had a full weekend of WSL action and there was one woman guaranteed to watch it all. 10 screens on the go again. Emma Carroll, who has made your COYGIG team of the week?
Wasn't too bad. We had to call off, so,
Yeah.
it took the pressure off a little
half day's work.
Yeah. I went with Grace Maloney in goal, Daniel Turner, Millie Bright and Battier as a back 3. In midfield, 5/front 4. Let's just say it's quite attacking this week.
It's very attacking this week, yes.
Guru, Wrighton, Cagman, Zellum, Daly, Russo, and then a front 2 of Kerr and England.
Okay, well, we expected a strong Chelsea contingency there. Wrighton just for that free kick. I mean, that really set them off. Like you can't put that anywhere better, really.
She was just brilliant.
Top bins, yeah. I was looking on Twitter. They did have like her heat map thing as well, and she's just so aggressive in those attacking areas. So impressive. Well, they were impressive everywhere, but very strong. I agree with Millie Bright going in just for that pass that she did for the Sam Kerr goal. Like that's defense splitting it. She just took everyone out of the game. Great run, obviously, and she finished it at the second attempt.
She looked like she was looking for a goal herself as well. A lot of the time she's popping up in the box from time to time.
In those games, you kind of get a bit selfish, and you're like, I want to get involved in this.
Everybody does. So the scores aren't going up. Everyone's running up for free kicks and stuff.
It definitely seemed that way, yeah.
And
for Selim's deliveries alone, Karen,
yes.
I'm so happy she's in there. I couldn't go. I was watching the game and I was just thinking I would love to be on the end of those, but she just laces them lovely. So I'm delighted she's in there.
And we've kind of spoken about the importance of those set piece deliveries. That's why we've kind of put Megan Connolly in the team a couple of times as well. Like they're such a big part. Like the 2 headers obviously that Russo scored were brilliant, but like someone has to put them on her head, and Zellum was just pinging balls in there. It was brilliant. Cagman in, we don't often see her, but like really, really good performance from her at the weekend as well.
Goal and assist, I think she got
goal and
assist in that game.
I thought it was decent performance. The game itself probably wasn't a whole lot to write home about, but goal and assist. And I suppose when you don't have the likes of City and Arsenal playing, it gives you the opportunity to get some of these players in as well that are having actually decent seasons, but we don't get to talk about them a lot. The same with Daly as well for Everton. She's probably one of the only Everton bright sparks. Now, Claire Emsley is probably worth an honourable mention as well. For about an hour, she kind of was really good, and then she seemed to tire a bit maybe. But the last
big Old Trafford pitch now, to be fair.
She was Everton's only threat, wasn't she, really, in the game? And obviously scored a lovely finish in the 3rd minute or so. But I just thought, watching the game, she was, counter-attack. She was really hurting United. So she could have been a shout. Blundell as well, I thought had a good game for United. She was decent, to be fair, as well. So
Emma doesn't like to put too many Man United players.
No, I have 3 in there.
Don't mind that either, Emma. Myself.
I'd say you're buzzing for next season, hopefully having Liverpool.
Yeah, can we just mention Megan Campbell's throw-ins as well? I thought Fahy was going to get on the end of one, and then about 30 seconds later, she whips one in and they do score for one. So, the sooner the better.
Great to see them back though in the WSL, won't they?
Yeah, can't wait.
Where they should be. I mean, like we said, Mark Skinner talked about like the progress that Man United can help with the league. Liverpool are the same, like in terms of following, even more so now since the recent successes. So, be great to see them back in. Even more Irish bias to look forward to on the. We do have one Irish player.
Irish bias, like,
that's your dream. That's your dream, Emma. You do have one Irish player in there. Always good to get a shout out, and we've mentioned it before. Maloney, like she on her day, she's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think she was like, apart from, obviously Lambourne for Leicester being a busy goalkeeper, I think Maloney was one of the busiest goalkeepers of the weekend and pulled off some brilliant saves. So I think she was surefire. I think she was the only standout goalkeeper of the weekend. So there was no chance of her not going in there. You mentioned Connolly as well. She probably could have been more to shout as well in the midfield.
I think there was too many strikers to try and fit in there. I mean, you're already pushing it a little bit here. These are attacking fullbacks as well.
Very much so. Yeah,
just be bright at. Yeah, even she was attacking. So
I thought Dan Turner though done well for Everton. I thought she kept Leah Galton and Toon relatively quiet as well.
Not an easy task. We've spoken about Toon a lot. She's brilliant. She's so lively. Yeah, so that was a big one. But everyone would have wanted to impress, wouldn't they? Out in Old Trafford, like I'd say everyone was really, really up for that game.
So poor Martha Thomas not getting her goal as well.
Yeah, was she injured or was she on the bench? I actually didn't check that out. I don't know, Emma. Do you know?
Caldwell was it? Yeah, I think she was injured. I think
was she?
By the looks of it, I think she put out an Instagram or a tweet or something afterwards.
Right, because she had been playing. So when I turned the game on, she was actually the first person I looked for because she's the biggest United fan ever.
I know.
So I thought like she'd probably just googly-eyed star.
It's a shame for her because she's been playing brilliantly as well.
Yeah, it's such a shame for her. But look, hopefully she'll be back fit for the upcoming Irish games. Obviously, we mentioned that Savannah isn't there, but like, what a person to slap back in. Like you said, there was eyebrows raised that she can start for Man United and wasn't starting on the Irish team. Shows that there's good competition there though as well.
Absolutely, and it shows as well, and I always say this to players, obviously we always applaud people going abroad, but Sav, plays in our league, went into the squads, didn't just go in to take part, went in and took our place instead in it. So it just goes to show that. But again, look, Diana's been a great servant, hasn't she been, over the years? So she's looked the perfect body to go back in now for the important games coming up.
She'll be busy for that Sweden game anyway. Well, what do you reckon? Did Emma nail it with her selections? I think we agreed on everything there, which was new. But do you think someone was left out? Are we entirely wrong? Let us know. Get your thoughts and opinions into us on Twitter on @offtheball using the hashtag OTB COYGIG. Now, we are delighted to be joined by Shelburne player and newly capped Ireland international Chloe Mustacky. Chloe, welcome to the COYGIG Pod.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been following all your guys' progress over the past while. It's interesting to be on and to be a part of it.
I know I'm feeling a little bit outnumbered here on the Shelburne vibe. I'm a bit uncomfortable, but look, we'll get through it.
It's become a regular thing, this Shel's P thing, Karen.
It's where we weren't friends. No, we're so happy to have you on the podcast, Chloe. Obviously, things are going great for you at the moment. Newly capped Ireland international. And we've heard a lot of your story, but kind of want to just take you right back because I was doing a bit of Googling, and I was looking at where you went to school. So you went to St. Andrews, and the list of honours of people who've come out of that school for a relatively small school, is there just an ethos, or is there a particular teacher that just encourages? I'm just thinking, like, is it Andrew Porter, Gillian Pinder, Chloe Watkins, you? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, interestingly, well, it's quite a big hockey school. So a lot of people come out of Andrews, having been capped at underage at least in hockey, both men and women. Then I think, I don't know, myself and Porter kind of just slipped through there over the past couple of years. Andrew's obviously been fantastic with the Irish men's rugby team and stuff. So I don't know. It's a tricky question. Like, it's not a massive school for sport, generally speaking. And even when it comes to hockey, like, we do well, but we are not kind of, I don't think we win like every season either, or every year. So I don't know. Like, I the answer to that question is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, sport is really not at the forefront in Andrews. It's a very multicultural school, which is probably the main thing it's known for. So I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. It's a good one though.
So where did soccer come into play for you then originally?
Yeah. So you know yourself, but I have an older brother, so I used to just play with him and his friends on the street outside our house in the early days. We both played for a local club called Park Celtic, and then I just fell in love with it, kept playing. He stopped, played a bit of rugby, dabbled in a few sports, and then he ended up becoming a doctor and having no time for anything else. So yeah, really through him, to be honest, even though he doesn't play, you know, he still follows you know, my progress and stuff.
Serious progress being made at the moment. Well, just touch on that, the cap, how long it's been coming for you, what that feeling must have been like. I don't think anyone, like, everyone was so buzzing. Like, I was all over Twitter, everyone was so happy to see it. I'm sure it was the same in Shel's group chat and stuff. Everyone was so buzzing. Was it emotional?
Yeah, it definitely was emotional. To be honest, the biggest thing about it was it came quite unexpected, which kind of made it a bit sweeter. Like, you know, obviously I got back playing competitively end of August, and to think that I would have got that first cap, 6 months later, I, you know, going through the tough times during my rehab, like, I would have never thought that 6 months, you know, post my first game back, I'd get my first international camp or senior cap. So yeah, I don't know, it was really emotional. And, like, you know, I think as competitive athletes, you guys would know, like, every time you reach a milestone, it's always about striving for the next thing. And, like, that's something that's just ingrained in us. We just always do it. But, like, for the first time, I was able to kind of just be happy, like, just be happy and enjoy the moment and not be worried about, okay, well, will I play in the next game now? You know, and I was just content with having played and with having got that cap, which is just something I'm really not used to. So it was a really enjoyable moment, you know, specifically for that as well. And then also, I mean, like, Pearl would have seen it firsthand, but, like, just through the 18 months of my rehab and, like, wondering, like, would I actually ever get back to that level? Like, there were definitely days where I did think that. So it was great. It was fantastic. And then I actually spoke to someone last week who asked me, like, you know, you've reached, that was your goal over the past 5 years or so, get that first international cap. So how do you feel now? Like, you know, are you still, as I mentioned, striving for that next thing, or are you still basking in that happiness and stuff? So it's a bit of both, you know, like, as I said, like, you reach that stage and then you're always striving for more, but it's important to try and reflect on, you know, how far you've come and be happy with that.
Chloe, just in terms of the injury itself, obviously there you've said I would have seen a lot of that stuff, like, last season and stuff in pre-season, and watching you run by yourself. And I'd like to give you a shout out. You're probably one of the best teammates I've probably ever had in terms of quality of play, how driven you are, just standards constantly. And obviously, you know, the injury came out of nowhere, so it was a challenge for you, something you've never faced. And you're probably one of the first people, like, obviously I've heard of people getting injuries and the ACL, but you're one who's obviously went into detail to me. And I'd always think, Jesus, after hearing what you've went through, it's a really serious injury. And I mean, like, how tough was it? Like, fill people in just on those 18 months, because I think people just watch the success story and brilliant, you're back in with the Irish squad, and you're back in with Shel, which we were buzzing with. But I mean, how tough was it, you know, that journey of rehab and just the injury itself?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like anything in life, really, actually, until you experience it yourself, you'll never truly understand. And, like, you would have had the names of, like, Rihanna Jarrett, Kira Rossiter, some of those big names that, you know, we would have heard about tearing the ACL, and you would have thought, like, God, how unlucky they are to have even done it multiple times, and, like, how shit a journey it must be. But, like, Jesus, do I know how shit it is now. And, like, you know, that's not really to scare people off. Like, you know, my heart goes out to Sav, you know, who's just done hers, and other people it's happening to all the time. And, like, it isn't the end of the world. Like, it's fine, you'll get through it. And yes, there'll be tough days, but yeah, I mean, it teaches you a lot. Like people actually always ask me, like, unfortunately, obviously I've been through cancer treatment as well, and people always ask me to like compare, contrast the two, which is a great question. And like, definitely, I think from a mental standpoint, when you're an elite athlete, and that's just part of who you are, like to have that taken away from you is almost more like destabilizing than going through something like chemo. And like that may be like weird to hear, but like with chemo, like I could still, you know, play a bit of football. I could still run. Like as an athlete, we run, you know, as athletes, we run every single day. I couldn't do that properly for like 9 months. And like, that is just, you know, not having that adrenaline rush or anything for so long when you're so used to it, like it really messes with your head. And like, I definitely went through such a difficult time mentally throughout my rehab. And I'm still, I wouldn't say like out the other end of that, like still has affected me. And I still, you know, have things to work through. I think myself, having gone through such a difficult period, not being able to run, not being able to play, not being able to be in that team environment, which I was so used to, like, so I think like I found it so tough, like tougher than my cancer treatment from a mental perspective, definitely. Obviously they each had their own challenges, but like, I think I was particularly unlucky in just that I had a difficult rehab, and like people shouldn't really like look at me as the standard. And I think that made it particularly tricky as well, because as I said before, like it's all well and good if you're not putting in the work and the time and you're not seeing the results. But like for someone like myself, and like I'm not scared to say it, like I did everything right. Like, you know, I showed up to the gym every day or every second day, how many times I needed to be in. Like I asked all the questions all the time, and like Pearl would laugh, like I'm just so meticulous about everything, like even the Shel's group, like asking all these questions, like what time we're leaving at, like, and all these things, stupid things, but like that's just who I am. And like I took that rehab process really, really like seriously, and to not be able to meet those milestones when I was giving it 100%, like that was also something that I really like struggled with throughout the process. So I had some kind of extra battles, and not to make it sound like I had a tougher time than everyone else. Like everyone's journey is different, but yeah, mentally it was awful. It was awful, but like it's taught me a lot about myself as well, and it's made me appreciate, like from a mental health perspective, like how easy it is actually to kind of derail a little bit. And like, you know, having had quite a structured background and being quite privileged in my background, I never mentally struggled until I tore my ACL. And like I definitely, those 2 years, and still like I feel like I'm not out the other end of just like how hard I found that, just not being able to just get that release and that I was so used to like my whole life essentially.
It's really refreshing to hear you kind of like mention, say, mental health and things, because I do think when you play elite sports, you need that adrenaline rush, you need this, that, and the other, and the highs are very high and then the lows can be very low. Do you have any particular tools, or was it all just your own internal mindset? You were trying to like make yourself feel better about these dark days, come out the other side, or do you buy into like sports psychology? What's your trick? Because I know that we could all do with a little bit of help sometimes.
Yeah, I think most people who are close to me would know that, like, generally speaking, I'm quite an open person, and like the thing that brings me most happiness in my life are my relationships. So like I spent so much time like talking about my process to my friends, my family, to my physios. I mean, I've mentioned before, like I openly cried to Enda King and Santry like several times, like, and I think I was just really open and about how I was feeling throughout. And like one thing I'd mentioned going through the process to Enda was like how for an injury that's so common and so difficult to kind of get to and come back from in a way, how is there not some like online forum where people can like discuss these things and can talk through these, you know, issues that they're having, and see like how other elite athletes have dealt with it. And those are kind of questions that I was trying to get answers for at the time. Like something else that I wish we did have more of in the Irish setup was that psychological support. And like, not to name drop, but like I'm sure she wouldn't mind, but like Claire Shine, when she was going through a tough time, she's obviously a friend of mine, like I just wish there was a bit more of that support, you know, in the Irish women's setup here, not necessarily just through the FAI, but even through the clubs, like I'm sure some of the bigger nations have it even in their leagues, and it would be great to try and have a bit more of that, because people may think elite athletes have it all, but like being in that environment, all the time can bring its own psychological difficulties. And as well, like when something is so a part of you, like being in that team environment, playing football, running, and that's taken away from you, like it's like in a way like losing, a partner, or in a way like to a lesser degree, but it's losing a big part of yourself. And how do you deal with that as an athlete, So it's something I wish I had more access to, but I guess I was just, in a nutshell, I was kind of lucky just with the friends and the family I had and the upbringing I had. I was just, and the past experiences I had, I could have perspective on everything. And I knew I'd get there someday, even if it just took me a bit longer. I knew I would get there. But like, for some reason, some people can't see that, and it's much more difficult for them. So I guess like that lack of psychological support in women's football in Ireland is a bit disappointing, probably. Like,
it's good that you're open, so you would go and seek help, but I do think you're right. I think it needs to be visible. It needs to be put in front of people to be like, because people don't like to ask for support. They don't like to ask for help. They think they can manage it themselves. But if it's actually put in front of you and not forced on you, but like, we should probably all be checking in with someone every now and then, like in terms of the league. Like after we imploded in the league last year, I wasn't right for a long time. But we just kind of sweep it under the carpet and things like that. So I do think you're dead right at that. I know the PFAI do have some supports in place, but again, visibility, like people wouldn't really even know that. I
didn't even know that. I didn't even know that. Like, and as I said, I'm sure like if I asked for it, I'd get it. Mm-hmm. But it'd be great. Yeah, it'd be great as if there was more visibility around that.
Yeah. So, God, this is very deep.
Yeah, that's good. That was good.
So always deep with me, Karen.
Yeah. Sorry, Karen, just before you move on, Chloe, just in terms of, sorry for mentioning the ACL again, and obviously you've mentioned Sav, like who's a teammate of yours in the Irish squad, was probably in her peak, and it's, the most unfortunate time for her to pick up that injury. But as you said, when people get injured like that, mentally or physically, people don't really speak about it. Would you have any tips, I suppose, if Sav or anybody else in the league or around the country, just get an ACL, like any little tips that got you through the 18 months, or as you said, everybody's individual injury is going to be a little bit different. But I suppose I'm just thinking, if that was me now and I'm listening to this and you've lived through it, it would be really helpful,
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I just think in tough times, people that get you through it is the people around you. And I just think it's important to try and be as vocal as you can when you're going through these things, and also reach out to people who've done it before. I mean, like I spoke to Rihanna, I spoke to Tegan Ruddy, loads of those girls really helped me through it. Like when I was going through issues, road bumps along the way, to be able to bounce thoughts off them and to be able to understand whether it was normal, whether it was slightly abnormal. Like, and another thing that actually really helped me as well, and this is only just a personal thing, but like you probably both of you have heard about the High Performance podcast.
Yeah.
And like, I have become addicted to listening to like motivational stuff. And like, as I said, I went through my darkest days, I would say, to date, and going through that rehab process. And as I said, still not out the other end, but like, even like this morning, like went out for a walk and listening to the High Performance podcast, and just like listening to people who have reached massive highs in their field, but talk about the lows that they've gone through and what it taught them, and just being able to listen to other people's stories and to basically get motivation from them. Like that was one big thing that helped me, and it's about finding whatever it is for you that helps. So whether it be podcasts, whether it be reading, whether it be looking at documentaries of people who have had success stories but also gone through difficult times. So it was I guess my advice is a bit two-pronged, I guess, leaning on people around you, but also finding your motivation in ways that maybe you wouldn't have had before. Like I would have never listened to podcasts before, but it was a new outlet for me that kept me going.
Brilliant.
Yeah, well, your motivation is clear to see for everyone. You're back flying it with Shelburne. You have played in Bordeaux and in Charlton as well, so you've good experience, like you've sampled different kind of cultures, different ways of playing. What's your opinion on where our league is at the moment? Because say Charlton, they're WSL 2, like we're obviously always looking to improve the league, and having someone like you still in our league is brilliant for us. But where do you think we are in terms of standard?
So my answer to this would have been probably slightly different 2 weeks ago than it is now, and Pearl will laugh when I tell you why. But I think there's definitely been improvements from like before I left to go play for Charlton to now. There's definitely improvements. I mean, obviously no one's paying for subs. Firstly, like that's absolutely massive. To be out of pocket to be playing is ridiculous, and it's just great to see that improvement. So that's brilliant. And then obviously, look, the quality of the players that we are producing these days has shot up compared to 5 years ago. You know, some of the players that have gone across the water, but also some of the players that are still here, that are in the national squad, for example, like Ellen Malloy, Jess Sue, now going to West Ham. Like, you know, it's fantastic that, you know, we've brought up those players here in the league. I found it, you know, this is the first time I'm being openly vocal about it, but our game against Wexford was cancelled a couple of weeks ago, and like, if I'm not mistaken, they had brought in the idea of like having a few extra weekends off, so that if there was any kind of cancelled games, that, you know, they would be rescheduled then. And our game's been rescheduled to a Tuesday evening, where we're all going to have to take a half day off, probably get back at 1 a.m. in the morning, and then I'll be working the next morning. So that was definitely kind of a low point for me to hear that, just because I felt like we'd made so many strides forward in the league, and so all this positivity around what's improved, and then to see that, I felt it was a bit of a step back. And look, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal, but it is in a way at the same time, because it's about principles, and it's about, you know, trying to do the right thing. And I know you can't have it every which way in scheduling difficulties, but it's just important that we don't put players at risk. And that's the main thing. We don't have players out of pocket. We don't have them at risk of injury from tiredness or anything like that. And I just found that a little bit disappointing when we've talked about all the improvements, and then to see that happen.
Yeah, like it's always that kind of 2 steps forward, maybe just 1 back at the moment. But those little things, they do make a difference, and they're the kind of things that we do need to maybe put your foot down a little bit, and just be like, no, you have free weekends, make sure that they're used for the right reasons, and make sure the pitches are in good nick and all that sort of stuff. But like you say, we do have good players. We're producing really, really good players in the league. Do you think that is the WSL maybe too big of a step, or do you think the WSL 2 is the perfect kind of stepping stone in terms of standard? Because we often do see stars here.
Yeah, I think it's very individual. Like, I think this step up to WSL would be quite large. I think, you know, having played at Charlton, I think that, you know, some of the top players here would probably do very well at some of the top teams in the championship. The likes of Jessu, you know, Ellen Malloy, any of those young girls who are really flying at their young age, it may be worth their while going to a WSL club for a season and seeing how much improvement they can get from that, you know, just 1 season of maybe not getting much game time, but getting that training exposure to fantastic players and fantastic coaching. And then, you know, after a year of maybe not much game time, then, you know, getting a move to another club, or then starting to get game time where they are. So I think it's always an individual question. I think you got to understand who the other players are in your position at the club that you're going to. So, I mean, overall, if I was to give you a succinct answer to that, I think the step up would probably be to a top team in the championship, and then a step up from there. But it really does depend on the person, and, you know, maybe for example, like Jamie Finn, like, you know, making that step over for her, she's getting loads of game time. She's definitely improving. Yes, it's difficult because they're not getting the results, and mentally it might be a bit difficult for her, but what that year, you know, of difficulty will do for her is probably a lot. Like, she'll probably get a move to, you know, another decent WSL side, and then push on from there. So it's about looking at all the different factors and deciding. But generally speaking, I'd say the step would be to go via the championship, probably, for most players.
And what about your own ambitions now? Obviously, I don't want to.
Other than winning,
yeah.
Shel's.
I'd love if Shel's lost you, but I don't want you to leave the country, to be honest. But what about your own ambitions now? Is it just stuck back playing and keep striving for the Irish caps and see what comes about, or would you actively look to try something new again?
Yeah, I think ultimately I'll find it very difficult to keep my place in the Ireland squad if I don't move away. And like, look, as I said, like my sources of happiness are mostly my relationships. So like if I'm not playing professionally and playing for Ireland, that won't be the end of my life. And like for some people, football is their be all and end all, and I completely understand that. And as I said at the beginning of the podcast as well, like it is a massive part of my life, and when I don't have it, I struggle. But I need to have the right people around me. So I guess the idea is hopefully to move away and at least play semi-professionally and then see where that takes me. And I'd love to obviously keep playing for Ireland for as long as I can. So in order to kind of touch all bases there, if I could play semi-professionally or professionally, I could keep playing for Ireland and I could still be close to family and friends. That would be the ideal scenario. How that plays out, I don't know. But I have an agent now, so close or block your ears, Pearl. But I will probably look to see what my options might potentially be in the summer. If something works, great. If not, I'll just hold off. It's not about unsettling myself and making myself unhappy just for the sake of trying to force something. So I will be looking at options, but only if it kind of works on all fronts.
How do you feel about that, Pearl?
I'm okay, Karen. I'm okay. But in fairness, Chloe, I think we were delighted to obviously keep you then, even for this season. We thought, a few of us obviously would have headed off. And I think in terms of yourself, it's just making sure, like everybody else, it's always hard to lose players. I think you would agree, Karen, as well. You would have lost, obviously. I know I'd seen on Twitter and stuff that you weren't okay that time when you lost Claire and stuff like that. So, it's really tough for us to, and I suppose the time and when you lose players, but it has to be, if it's the perfect move and the right move for you, Chloe, like any other squad, we're always delighted. Similar with Jess Sue, she's worked so hard to get a move and it's great to see her and we'll always support her. So I think, look, everyone at Shel's, as hard as it is, we kind of know it'll be hard to keep the likes of Chloe. So, look, the fact that she's here for the first part of the season is a huge plus for us. So, long may it continue.
Yeah, it's particularly tricky because it's Champions League, that makes it, attractive to stay as well. So, yeah, it is definitely difficult. It really has to be the right circumstances, the right move, but we'll see.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us. We're delighted to have you. We obviously wish you so well, not with Shel's, but in the rest of. No, we do. Like, I'm just so happy that you're back playing and like not just playing, absolutely bossing it. I mean, you're coming up to internationals now, so that you obviously have one eye on that, I would say. Just before we wrap up, I just want to get your thoughts on those upcoming games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, but as I said, following my first cap, like if I'm in April, fantastic. If I'm not, it doesn't matter. There's so many girls who are deserving. I just got to keep working away. And as I said, the way that I can ensure to be in every time is if I get a semi-professional or professional deal. So I can't be expecting to be in unless that's the case. So look, fingers crossed I make the cut. If I don't, I won't be too disappointed and I'll just look towards June.
Well, I look forward to hopefully seeing you in that game. I don't want you on the panel beside me anymore in RTE. I want to be watching you on the pitch. But it has been so lovely to talk to you. Some really, really good insights there. So thanks a million for joining us on the podcast. Just before we wrap up, I just want to do the little plug where we say that is all from myself, Pearl, and Em on this week's COYGIG Pod in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partners to the Republic of Ireland's women's national team. As ever, we'll be back with you again next week, so make sure you're subscribed to the COYGIG Pod anywhere you get your podcasts. Now, Chloe loves podcasts, so keep subscribing.
The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.